We've got to have a serious and completely unbiased conversation about Arsenal in today's video because when I think about Arsenal and I think of their defence, they have the best defence in the Premier League. They have for the last 3 years, and the depth there is pretty insane. Timber and Ben White for right back. They've got obviously Gabriel and Saliba, but Mosquera and Kivior's very good backup. Calafiori can also play centre back. Timber could also play centre back, and Calafiori and Lewis Skelly for left back. That's very good depth. You look at midfield, Subamende, Declan Rice, Odegaard midfield three is good. Wanyeri and Dalman could fill in further up. Very young, but good, exciting options there. They've got Norgard that can also come in and fill in one of the deeper roles that I think will be a better signing for Arsenal than he probably gets credit for. I think there's a very talented player there. But the question marks around Arsenal have been in attack. Now, obviously, Arsenal's attack wasn't particularly inspiring against Manchester United at the weekend, but that is one game. And even as a Manchester United fan, I know that Arsenal, sometimes when they go to Old Trafford, it's never really a good game for them. They drew last season at Old Trafford. And obviously, Victor Gyökeres, he was pretty bad versus Manchester United. He didn't get much service. I think Arsenal definitely could have played more to his strengths, but he wasn't good versus Manchester United. His touch was a little bit off. But does that mean that Victor Gyökeres is going to flop? Absolutely not. Bukayo Saka is a world-class player. He was pretty poor versus Manchester United. Does that mean Saka's going to have a bad season? No. So why does Gyökeres having a bad game against Man United all of a sudden mean he's going to have a bad season? I think Gyökeres is going to score a lot of goals for Arsenal. He may need time to click and develop and understand the system. I wouldn't say develop, he's already developed, but he might need time to click with his teammates, understand the system. But I think Gyökeres will be a success. Saka, I'm confident, will have a good season. And Saka and Madueke on the right is really good options. Gyökeres and Havertz in the middle is really good options. That's two players that can score 20 goals. The left, there's question marks over it. And we already knew that Arsenal probably needed a left winger if they really wanted to feel a bit confident about finishing above Liverpool and City. Arsenal are capable of winning the league, but the left wing is the big question. But Arsenal doesn't look like they're going to sign a left winger. It looks like they're going to let Eze have a free run to Spurs, which is crazy because that's an unbelievable signing for Spurs. But now everything's changing for Arsenal because they've been hit with some pretty big news. Arsenal forward Kai Havertz set for a spell out with knee injury. Assessments on 26-year-old German international at early stages, so prognosis and duration unclear, but Arsenal actively exploring the transfer market to strengthen attack. So Ornstein has come out and said that Arsenal are now exploring the transfer market to strengthen attack. He also gives context that Jesus is not expected back before Kai Havertz. So this is big, and this is big in many ways because it means Arsenal are now going to look to sign an attacker. But from what David Ornstein is saying, that doesn't look like it's going to be Rodrygo. It doesn't look like it's going to be Leao. Eze to Tottenham is essentially pretty much done. Who is that going to be? Well, we're going to talk about the three names that Arsenal can sign, and we're going to talk about that and why they could be good signings for Arsenal in a second. But I want to share my initial thoughts on this Kai Havertz injury before I get into the news. And my general thoughts on this is a big blow for Arsenal. Gyökeres wasn't good versus Manchester United, but I do think he'll be a success at Arsenal, and I think it would be crazy to write him off after one game. I think people are being too harsh. I think he will succeed. Haaland, I remember people wrote off Haaland after the Community Shield, and then he broke the record. But I think having Kai Havertz as an option, someone you know can score 20 goals, it's a good option for Arsenal to have because there's going to be games where Gyökeres is way more suited to it, and there's going to be games where Havertz is way more suited to it because they're very different profile of players. And I think having Havertz there as well would take the pressure off Gyökeres a little bit. So Havertz being injured is a huge blow because he was a massive miss last season that no one really spoke about. Everyone spoke about Saka's injury, but Havertz was just as big a miss at points last season. We obviously know what he's capable of doing. So that's a big blow for Arsenal. And on top of the fact that they probably need a left winger, their attack wasn't great versus Manchester United, but this is Old Trafford. This is, even when Man United are bad, it's not a place that Arsenal enjoy going to. Saka didn't have his best game. We know that he's a top player. But Arsenal, we know they've got the best defence in the league. We know they've got one of the best midfielders in the world. We know they're probably the best team in world football off the ball, but it is on the ball. Now, Madueke could come in and play at left wing. It'll be interesting to see what he brings. I think he's a high shot volume player. Gyökeres is a high shot volume player as well. And Madueke, Gyökeres, Saka front three is interesting to see. But it doesn't take a genius to say Arsenal probably need reinforcements. So let's talk about how this Havertz injury could potentially change everything for Arsenal in regards to the transfer window, as they're now looking at attacking reinforcements. But is that striker cover, or is that someone that could go on the left wing just for there to be another option and Trossard becomes striker cover? So, even before Havertz's injury, Arsenal had been looking for an attacker, mostly left wingers in case Trossard left. Trossard is interest from Premier League clubs and abroad. I do think how much Arsenal can spend will depend on Trossard's exit. I think if he doesn't leave, I think it could be a cheaper deal, it could be a loan deal. David Ornstein was on the Sky Mobile transfer show today, and he was asked a few questions about Arsenal. He says there was always this nagging feeling at the club about the left-hand side. It's no disrespect to Martinelli or Trossard, but I think the powers that be at the club feel if the opportunity was right, an upgrade can be sought from the market. Now, obviously, Eze free run to Spurs isn't a good look for Arsenal, but Eze is seen as more central cover. I think David Ornstein even said that, and you've got Dalman and Wanyeri coming through. I think you should look at an out-and-out left winger like Leao. Arsenal don't seem to be exploring that. He also mentioned that Gordon is unlikely. Newcastle with the Isak situation are just not going to sell Gordon. He also mentioned Rodrygo's unlikely. Obviously, wants to stay at Madrid and it's expensive. And Eze is seen as more of a central option, is what David Ornstein mentioned. So I was like, well, they just need to go for Rafael Leao. They need to go and get Rafael Leao. But David Ornstein said on Rafael Leao, I don't know of Arsenal being on that case whatsoever. So that's not one that's come across my radar. So he's even saying, well, he's heard nothing about Arsenal going for Leao. That doesn't mean that they won't be in for Leao. They could go in for Leao later on. But it's one of those situations where he's just like, okay, right now, it's just not happening. So what are the options for Arsenal and who are they looking at? And why could they be good options? Just realised I forgot to show this, which is what David Ornstein did say on Eze. And that was that Arsenal love Eze, and if the price had been in the 40 million range, maybe they could push it to 50 million, or he said a bit higher, then perhaps it would be different. But if his move to Tottenham touches 60 million, this is not a place Arsenal are comfortable with. There's talk about PSR and that Arsenal basically have to be a little bit careful. So that rules out the obvious names, the names that everyone's been linking to Arsenal, people that use Arsenal for clicks every day are saying that Arsenal are signing these players and nonsense journalists. But Eze, close to Spurs. Rodrygo, high fee, wants to stay at Madrid. Leao, who would be perfect for you guys, no credible links. Gordon, Newcastle won't sell. So that means a few choices remain, one of which is Semenyo. Now, you've recently been linked to Semenyo, but he's going to be 60 million, 70 million. There's a big price tag on that. Same with Morgan Rogers. And same with Julian Alvarez. Now, you're in a situation where all three of these players are attainable if you sell Trossard. You know, you need to get a sale there, you need to get some flexibility, and there is rumours of Trossard leaving and expected to leave. Or you could do a last-minute striker deal. Because Matt Law is saying that barring the sales of a player, Arsenal expected to look at loans and bargains for cover if they receive bad news on Kai Havertz's injury. Now, as a Manchester United fan, I am going to remind you guys that Rasmus Hojlund is available on loan, 40 million obligation to buy, much appreciated. Jokes aside, I actually think that Rasmus Hojlund would probably do a lot better at Arsenal, but I don't think you're going to go for him. If you go for Nicholas Jackson, I actually think he's an underrated player, and I think he'd actually be quite good for you, but I will laugh because Chelsea are going to mug you off. But it'll be interesting to see what Arsenal do in terms of the striker market, because the player that's available on loan is Rasmus Hojlund. Now, I think that Arsenal will talk about PSR and talk about them not having a lot of money, this and that. But I think Arsenal knew that not getting a striker in the January market cost them last year. I think not acting cost them last year, and that injuries was a big thing. And despite Gyökeres coming in, cool, maybe Gyökeres is your striker until Havertz is back, but maybe at least bring in a left winger. So we're going to talk about the players that Arsenal could realistically bring in now, if they can raise the funds, and why these are good signings. Because this Kai Havertz injury obviously changes a lot for Arsenal. It's a big blow. It's a player that's very important, injured for I don't know how long at the start of the season. But this now means Arsenal are going to go out and sign another attacker. This changes everything in terms of, I thought Arsenal were done in the window after Eze is set to move to Spurs. Could Arsenal hijack Eze? You never know. But it's changing Arsenal's transfer window. And I think the player that Arsenal should look at is Semenyo. So I want to talk about him, then Rodgers, then Alvarez. So with Semenyo, he is very good on the counter-attack, or transitions, you'll say. Very direct, very powerful. And I think Arsenal lack on transitions, and he'll be very good in those transition moments. Unlike City and Liverpool, Arsenal are very possession dominant, break teams down slowly. They can't move quick with the ball. And Arsenal lack that compared to a City or Liverpool when it comes to transition moments or taking advantage of transitions. Sometimes Odegaard takes too many touches, and Arsenal need to be better at that. He's got elite pace. He brings elite pace to Arsenal's front line, and he's a constant threat. Look how he ran through Liverpool. Look how many issues he caused Liverpool defence. He's very good at exploiting space between defensive lines. He can play striker. I wouldn't play him striker. He'd probably be best on the left wing, but he can play left wing, right wing, striker. He's very flexible across that front line, so he'd be good for squad rotation. My one question is, okay, I think Madueke is a good player. I just don't think he's worth 52 million when you've got Saka on the right. I do sometimes think if you actually are broke and you can't afford Semenyo or Eze, why did you drop 52 million on Madueke? Surely you should have dropped Madueke money on Semenyo, because I think Arsenal have got about 50 million to spend, right? That's what David Ornstein's getting. If Eze was 50 million, they'd do it. They can't go to 60 million. So that means if you didn't get Madueke, you could have got Semenyo instead, who can play on both sides more comfortable than Madueke. I do sometimes question that. I think Arsenal have got money. I think Arsenal got 70, 80 million left in the bank for one more addition. I think they are tactically playing broke to make sure they get some good deals. But he's strong. He forces defenders into mistakes. He's direct. He adds something different. His ball striking is really improved. Sometimes he's inconsistent with the shooting, but the power he gets on it. He's a very good ball carrier, can run into space, out wide, centrally. He presses hard, and he will, Arsenal's a hard-working team. He will contribute at possession. In terms of an athlete, in terms of ground coverage, pressing, work rate, he's at the top. And he brings something different to Saka and Martinelli. He's chaotic, he's direct. And Arsenal struggle against low blocks. And the best way to break down low blocks is chaos. Having players that are unpredictable, that provide chaos, is the best way to break down low blocks. So I think Semenyo is who Arsenal should go all out and get. If they can't get Semenyo and you're looking at how to get the best out of Gyökeres, I do think Morgan Rogers is a good option for that. Morgan Rogers is versatile. He can play as a wide forward, attacking midfielder, could play as a second striker. He's not similar to Eze, but he has similar stylistic traits in the sense of his best zones are similar zones to Eze. He's good at carrying the ball, committing to defenders. He's quite hard to push off the ball, retaining possession in the final third. Sometimes can be wasteful with his shots. But I do think he would work well with Gyökeres, the movements, the combinations. I think he could get the best out of Gyökeres, and I do think someone like Rogers could be good. I'd still go for Semenyo over Rogers because I think Rogers is better in the central zones, but Rogers can carry the ball. Rogers can help in transition. He can move the ball quickly. He can support Gyökeres, and he's 23 and still got room to develop. And another player that could be available, but I don't think he'll be available, is Julian Alvarez. Now, Julian Alvarez is a proven big game player. He was fantastic for Atletico Madrid last season. I think he got 17 or 18 goals in La Liga. He's a versatile player. He normally plays striker but can play deeper. I think his ability to drop deep is a different profile to Gyökeres. So someone to rotate with Gyökeres, he'd be good. He could also play out wide, but I wouldn't play him out wide. But he can drop in the midfield, link play, very hard-working, very two-footed, very versatile, good experience at the highest level. I don't think Julian Alvarez is realistic, but I think Arsenal, in my opinion, should look at Semenyo. And I know Havertz is injured, and I know Semenyo can't really cover striker, but I think that, Gyökeres has a good fitness record. Havertz will be back. There's two players that can score 20 goals. I'd look at Semenyo for that left wing. Martinelli doesn't look like he's going anywhere. Bayern had interest, but they didn't pursue it. They went for Luis Diaz. Trossard, we'll wait and see what happens there. But I do think Arsenal have a bit of money to spend, maybe. I know there's talk about them not being in the best place of PSR, but I think a Trossard sale and I think a left winger's on. Anyway, Arsenal fans, let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching. Bye.